Hey, this is Mr. Mitchell again with another science video. Today we're talking about biomes. Go ahead and write down the questions. Here's the video. A biome is a group of land ecosystems. Now that sounds kind of complicated, but it's different environments here on Earth. The environments that have similar climates and consequently you have different kinds of organisms in each climate that have developed their niche in that climate. So here are the 6 major biomes. You can kind of see up here we have rainforest, desert, grassland, deciduous forest, boreal forest, and tundra. And we have a map down here where I'm going to draw where each of these are on the globe. The first major biome is the rainforest, and you can see we have a picture of the rainforest right here. Rainforest is mostly located near the equator. They are warm and wet all year long. There's kind of an underlayer to this. You can see we have the kind of the top layer, but once you get past the trees, there's kind of the trees kind of form a canopy. Let me write that down up here. The trees kind of form a canopy, and that's the leafy roof top. And there's actually a second layer underneath here where you have shorter trees and vines. And way down here, the forest floor, once you do finally get to the bottom of the forest, it's really nearly dark way down there. There's almost no plants that even live on the forest floor. Millions and millions of species of animals live here in the rainforest. All the other biomes combined don't have as many animals as there species of animals as there are in the rainforest. Now there are several places where you can find these. There are more temperate forests, kind of right around the Amazon River here. We also have some temperate forests along the equator here in Africa, and we also have quite a few in Indonesia here. It's hard to get exactly right on all these little islands, but you have primarily rainforest right there. And you also have some rainforest in some other places. There's kind of a little bit of rainforest here in the United States that's not really quite the same type of rainforest that you have in the jungles, but it's more of a temperate rainforest where you just by definition it doesn't seem to fit into any of the other categories. So that's a little bit about the rainforest. Next is going to be the desert, and we're going to circle the desert in purple here, if I can get it all right. But anyway, the desert receives less than 25 centimeters of rainfall each year. That's not 25 inches, that's 25 centimeters, and that would be roughly about 10 inches. So less than 10 inches each year is in a desert. Literally, the evaporation is greater than the amount of precipitation. It's just not going to have too many things grow here. There are extreme temperature changes from day to night. Animals and plants are very few, and the ones that are there have to adapt to the temperatures and the lack of water. Let's use the big map and see where deserts are located. We do have some deserts here in the United States, kind of in the southwestern area are deserts. I think I'm getting a little imprecise here. We also have some deserts. You may remember the Atacama Desert right here on the top of the Andes Mountains in South America. Have a whole lot of desert area, the Sahara type area here in Africa. Also a little bit of, I think, the Gobi Desert is right over here. You're going to study this year in 7th grade social studies. a little bit right over here, and almost all the inside of Australia is desert. So that's where you find deserts in our world. Now let's take a look at grasslands. Grasslands are like this right here. Now, there are a couple of different kinds of grasslands. Oh, that's a great circle, isn't it? But anyway, grasslands are prairies, grassy plains, and savannas. Now, the temperatures, of course, are a little bit more comfortable in a grassland. There's more rain than a desert in a grassland, but not enough to really grow trees. And if you look way off in the distance, there's just pretty much all you see is grass. You just don't see any signs of what might could even be trees off in the distance. These are typically in the middle latitudes, and most of them get about 25 to 75 centimeters of rain per year. Wow, I'm using the wrong color there, so I'll put 25 to 75. Hope you don't hear that in the background. My son is playing something on the TV at the time, but just disregard that if you do happen to hear that. Let's see where these grasslands are. Um, by the way, I think I probably should have a distinction on what a savanna is. A savanna are the grasslands that are closer to the equator. Now, they're going to get a pretty fair amount of rain, kind of like the rainforest do. The rainforests get a lot of rain, as it indicated by the name. But once you get to savannas, you can even get up to 120 centimeters per year. So the savannas are going to have more of those. And in the savannas, you have the world's largest animals. The elephants, the rhinos, the giraffes. Now we're talking about land animals here. And all the grazing done by these big animals actually help maintain the grasslands a little bit better. Grasslands we have down here, oh, you may remember the Pampas area down in South America. We have the Great Plains in the United States. Great Plains are a grassland. They're not savannas, but they are grasslands. Prairies, I guess you might say, is more what we have here. South America, or Africa, we have quite a bit of grassland in the southern regions, and a little bit right out in here. Pretty good amount of it off in India, up into China, and even over into Europe and over into southern Europe. You find a lot of grasslands, and all around the desert here you will find some Australian grasslands. Now let's go to a different color. This will be the deciduous forest. The deciduous forest have deciduous leaves that shed and grow new ones every year. Usually you get at least 50 centimeters rain per year here. Most animals that live here hibernate during the winter. And these, you can see here that we have different colors. These are the ones that have the typical leaves that fall off during the fall, and then in the spring they end up growing new ones. And in fact, we have a lot of those around here. And speaking of around here, this is one of the places where you have deciduous forest. I think green is appropriate for that. A lot around here. Pretty much all of Central America is deciduous forest as well. A lot of Southern America. It's kind of contradictory, northern, southern America. Right down in there, a little bit around in here in Africa. A lot in Europe. And then way over here in Asia. Oh, I'm a little bit off right here. But that's okay. That is in contrast to the boreal forest. The boreal forest is like this. Now, here in the United States, or at least in the southern part of the United States, we do have some evidence of these kind of trees here. These have coniferous trees. Coniferous trees are leaves that are shaped like needles. They have needles and cones. Um, the water here is frozen for a lot of the year, even though that's not how it looks right here. So you have trees that kind of have to adapt to this. Some call this the taiga, Taiga. So if you see that in your textbook, or if you see that elsewhere, that's what it's referring to. The boreal forest. Trees have thick needles that prevent water from evaporating. They prevent water from evaporating. That's why you have the needles and cones. So you can probably imagine that these are going up on the map. A lot of Canada is going to have boreal forest. See where else we have it. Oh yeah, all across Eurasia, I guess we'll call this Eurasia, northern part here. You find these coniferous leaves, needles and cones is how you can remember that. And then finally, we have the tundra. You may have heard of the term the frozen tundra. The frozen would not necessarily mean that it's always snow. You can imagine these are more toward the poles. But the tundra is extremely cold, extremely dry. And that's one thing people might not realize about the tundra is that it is dry. In fact, it gets about the same amount of precipitation as a desert. A desert gets less than 25 centimeters. It gets less than 25 centimeters per year. The soil here is mostly frozen. The soil is mostly frozen all year round. The soil is called the permafrost. Soil in the tundra is called the permafrost. You'll have shrubs, you'll have little grasses, and you could have some smaller trees here in the tundra. Now, if you can imagine that it would be most of the upper regions closer to the North Pole, which is where you will find the tundra. What you do have for grass on Greenland, not grasses, the non-ice will be tundra areas, and way up northern Russia, etc. right here, and that's where you'll find the tundra. Well, I hope you've learned a little bit about biomes.